Thanks a lot, Nkosana. But program directors, Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, His Excellency, the Vice President of Namibia, Mr. Nangolo Mbumba, President Khalima Motlanthe and Mrs. Motlanthe, Mama Grasa Machel, Honorable Ministers, Premiers and Mayors, Your Excellency Ambassador Cecilia Julin, and other ambassadors and high commissioners. The esteemed Modise and Bokwe families, Chief of the National Defense Force, and other officers of the Defense Force, our religious leaders, fellow mourners, comrades, ladies and gentlemen. We have convened here to say a final farewell to a very dear comrade, Ambassador Billy Modise. I would like to believe that by now all of us are familiar with Billy's biography, which, for instance, is contained in the obituary which will be given, and the other tributes that have been delivered. And accordingly, there is no need for me, therefore, to recount that biography. However, I must repeat that that biography tells us that for 63 years, from 1955, when he first went to Fort Hare, to 2018, when he finally left us, Billy was a loyal member and activist of the African National Congress. It therefore stands to reason that that membership of the ANC surely defined in very good measure who Billy Modise was and dictated what he did. And this is because, as we all know, the 6 decades during which Billy was a member and activist of the ANC were very critical in the process of the making and transformation of South Africa, and therefore the evolution of the ANC itself. And thus, in Billy Modise, we have one of those comrades who has been present as an actor in the process I've just mentioned of the making and transformation of our country and the evolution of the ANC. And as we all know, this was a process which, among others, included a most determined and multi-sided struggle within South Africa, with the broad liberation movement united around the Freedom Charter, combined with a similarly determined and truly massive international movement of anti-apartheid solidarity. With both of these offensives, the domestic and the international, which obliged the apartheid regime to enter into negotiations with the liberation movement to end the system of white minority rule, which led to the moment when we said free at last, followed by the democratic elections since 1994, with the ANC winning all the national elections during those years of democratic rule, and consequently which also led to South Africa's assumption of a rightful place in Africa and the rest of the world, after many years of international rejection and isolation. All these were each great victories in themselves. And as South Africans, we've owed it to the architects of each of these victories to bestow on them the deserved accolades. And of course, those accolades are finally due to all of those, including the masses of our people, whose collective actions finally brought freedom to our country. Billy Modise occupies an honored place among these who must receive those accolades. However, it must surely be a matter of common cause among all of us that truly to honor these great patriots requires more than these praises which we must indeed shower on them. What is imperative, in addition, is that we must do our best to ensure that the example they set and the legacy they left behind should serve to inspire the present and future generations to emulate the example and build on that legacy. Accordingly, as we say farewell to Comrade Billy, with all the due accolades, we must also surely repeat together, let us nurture 1 million more Billy Modises. Last year, the then Secretary General of the ANC, Gwede Mantashe, joined the ANC stalwarts and veterans, among whom Billy belonged, as Barbara said. Gwede sounded the alarm bells about exactly this matter, the need to nurture 1 million more Billy Modises, when he presented a diagnostic report on the ANC, in which he said, among others, that revolutionary morality is about the leadership of our movement adhering to higher standards of behavior. And he said we owe it to ourselves first, the movement and society, to analyze in detail the implications of a liberation movement that has ascended to power and therefore controls huge resources. And he said being in power is rapidly becoming a source of political bankruptcy, in that members of the ANC fight for deployment, either as councillors, MPLs, and MPs, respectively, as if there is no tomorrow. And he said it is foreign to our movement for comrades to see deployment as a source of material benefit rather than the reason to serve the people. And said these fights among our comrades turn the interest of our people off and push them away from the movement. Unquote. It would, of course, have been a matter of a special concern to all our people that Secretary General Mantashe was talking about our country's governing party. Accordingly, the abandonment of higher standards of behavior by many within the governing party, Billy Modise's party, which Secretary General Mantashe decried, meant very directly that this would seriously undermine the capacity and possibility for the governing party truly and effectively to serve the people of South Africa. Thus, does Billy's own party and our society as a whole need to inculcate in as many of our people as possible the example set by Billy Modise over many decades of adhering to higher standards of behavior, ever committed to serve the people. My own first contact with Billy in the context of political struggle was in 1959. At that time, I was a member of the executive committee of the ANC Youth League at Lovedale High School, which, as you know, is immediately across the Kume River from Fort Hare. And Billy was then secretary of the ANC Youth League branch at Fort Hare. At that time, the Lovedale Youth League related to the Fort Hare ANC Youth League branch as its immediate senior. We therefore interacted with Billy and his comrades as our seniors. The matter we sought to discuss with the ANC leadership at Fort Hare, as students at Lovedale High School, which was a boarding school, arose from the fact that we were on strike and intended to leave the school as part of that strike. And our Fort Hare comrades were fully in support of the strike, but now we wanted them to endorse our departure from our school, and happily for us, they agreed with us that we should indeed leave school. We believed that we had good reason why we should get the support of the ANC leadership at Fort Hare. We were convinced that that support would legitimize in the eyes of our parents in the ANC as a whole and our communities our decision to leave Lovedale without being expelled. And I mentioned this incident, which occurs almost 60 years ago, to indicate the political weight the activist for liberation, Billy Modise, carried, even when he was still part of the youth. Having served as secretary of the Forte SRC, secretary of the ANC Youth League at Forte, and the Victoria East ANC region, and member of the national leadership of the National Union of South African Students, NUSAS, the only non-racial and anti-apartheid national student organization at the time. It was surely a matter of great pride and satisfaction to Billy that in the years after he left Forte, successive generations of youth and students in our country continued to play important roles both in the struggle for liberation and the process of the construction and development of a democratic society. Our experience during 24 years as a democratic country has confirmed that the task of the eradication of the legacy of colonialism and apartheid and building a prosperous, non-racial and non-sexist democracy is indeed very complex. Among others, this emphasizes the great importance of doing everything necessary and possible to develop and inspire our youth to engage in this historic process of the fundamental socio-economic transformation of our country, drawing the necessary lessons from the example Billy Modise set during his own youthful years. And that same experience of 24 years of democracy has also firmly confirmed that South Africa is not an island sufficient unto itself. To succeed in all its endeavors, it needs to be truly, fully integrated within Africa and the rest of the world. We are indeed very honored that Her Excellency Ambassador Cecilia Julin of Sweden has been able to join this final farewell to Billy Modise, holder, as she said, of the prestigious Swedish Order of the Polar Star. In this context, I'd like to believe that all of us are very familiar with the outstanding role Sweden played in terms of the provision of massive support to our struggle. As Ambassador Julin said, and as has been said already, we must, of course, continue to pay tribute that is due to Billy for the work he did from 1960 onwards to help build what became a very powerful Swedish movement of solidarity with the peoples of South and Southern Africa. It spoke to Billy's dedication to the accomplishment of this task that as a student in Sweden, he opted to abandon his studies in medicine to pursue other subjects, which gave him more time to do his political work both in Sweden and some other Nordic countries. And that dedication contributed enormously to the privilege we enjoy to this day of excellent relations between South Africa and Sweden, and very warm, genuine, people-to-people relations between our two peoples. And I'd like to believe that as we continue the work to strengthen our relations with the rest of the world, including by helping to build a global movement for the democratization of the system of international relations, our diplomats would do their best to learn everything that is relevant from the work of Billy Modise, the work he did, which helped to win for our country a genuine friend, the Kingdom of Sweden. Ambassador Modise hoped that as a country as our country strives to liberate itself from the negative tendencies which have engulfed it during the recent years, it would also renew its focus on the strategic objective of the Renaissance of Africa, loyal to the long-established Pan-Africanist tradition of his movement, the ANC. as he taught at the Namibia Institute in Lusaka as Vice President of Namibia, as I said, to train Namibians who would help to manage and develop the liberated Namibia, working side by side with the current President of the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency Hage Geingob. Billy treated this task as an organic part of his life's mission as a cadre of the ANC. He had carried out his work in Sweden and other Nordic countries of helping to build the solidarity movement I've mentioned, working together with other liberation movements, such as those of Namibia, of Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. And somebody like the late Namibian the Vice President, that was at that time, Jaretundu Kozongwizi, founder of SWANU, which ultimately disappeared, was to Billy a colleague, given that he, Kozongwizi, had been an active member of the ANC Youth League when he was a student at Forte. Inspired by his vision and commitment relating to our continent, Africa, and the practical example he set, we must pay tribute to and truly honor Billy Modise by regaining the unqualified respect of the whole of Africa for our country, by doing the good and right things which gave hope to all Africans, including the African diaspora. The departure of Billy Modise from the world of the living confirms sad news we cannot escape, that an eminent generation in our country which has been involved in struggle for six decades or more to change the lives of our people for the better, is disappearing forever. These are men and women like Billy Modise, who throughout their lives, and despite their being confronted by great challenges, have consistently conducted themselves according to a noble value system and remained at all times humble, humanist, never self-serving, permanently ready to serve the people. Thus it is that when death robs us of any among this generation of liberators that I've mentioned, this produces a sense of foreboding, that unless we act to prevent this by ensuring that many among the living emulate our liberators, such as Billy Modise, one day we will wake up and find that there are none in our country who would conduct themselves according to the noble value system I've mentioned: humble, humanist, and never self-serving. Sincerely, and your daughter Thandi and the rest of the Modise and Bokwe families, and please accept our sincere condolences at the loss of one very dear to you, Ambassador Billy Modise. And our ambassador, our dear ambassador, our esteemed leader, our elder brother and friend, Comrade Billy, honored member of the Order of Lutuli. While we live, we will do our best to help ensure that the nation does not lose the extraordinary legacy you have left behind for its benefit, intent to give substance to what has been and will be said, that the spirit of Billy Modise lives on. And may the outstanding patriot, Ambassador Billy Modise, rest in eternal peace. Thank you.